It happened at the McDonald's on East Grand River near Cedars.
This building had a lot of smoke inside of it. You couldn't even see through the glass.
Have you ever felt like history has a way of playing tricks on us? From eerie repetitions of events centuries apart to baffling connections that defy all logic.
We're just getting reports in now that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
Some moments in history seem almost too strange to be real. These aren't just chance happenings. They're chilling riddles that leave even skeptics scratching their heads. What if a shipwreck foretold its tragedy years before it happened?
It's a novel published in 1898. The length of the ship in these pages, 800 feet. The Titanic, 882 feet. Then, on an April night, it struck an iceberg, and both were considered unsinkable.
Or a bullet that found its target years later. History is full of these spine-tingling coincidences, and each one raises an unsettling question. Stick around as we dive into these stories. You may never look at history the same way again. Titanic and Titan coincidence. Imagine writing a book so eerily prophetic that it feels like you've glimpsed the future through a crack in time. In 1898, author Morgan Robertson penned Futility, a novel about a massive, luxurious ship named Titan, a marvel of modern engineering deemed unsinkable. But here's the chilling part. In the story, the Titan collides with an iceberg on a cold April night and sinks, leaving behind a trail of tragedy. Sound familiar to you? 14 years later, the Titanic, bearing an almost identical description, suffered the same fate. The parallels are uncanny. Both ships were touted as unsinkable, inadequately equipped with lifeboats, and met their doom in eerily similar circumstances. It's as if Robertson was less an author and more of a time-traveling doomsayer. Was Robertson's futility an innocent exercise in imagination, or did the universe slip him a spoiler? Either way, it's a stark reminder that sometimes reality has a way of plagiarizing fiction, and not in a way anyone would enjoy. Talk about a plot twist no one saw coming, except maybe Robertson. The Hoover Dam mystery. From the icy depths of the Titanic tragedy to the sun-scorched construction of the Hoover Dam, history has a way of weaving its most chilling tales across vastly different landscapes. The Hoover Dam, an engineering marvel that tamed the mighty Colorado River, hides a chilling coincidence in its concrete foundations. During its construction, over 100 workers tragically lost their lives. But it's the eerie connection between the first and last deaths that sends a shiver down the spine. The first man to die was J.G. Tierney, a surveyor who drowned in 1922 while scouting the site. 14 years later, on December 20, 1935. The last death during construction was recorded, a young electrician named Patrick Tierney. His father's name? You guessed it, J.G. Tierney. Imagine the cosmic irony. The very project that claimed a father's life would one day claim his son's, precisely bookending the dam's deadly toll. It's as if fate had scripted a dark family tragedy into the dam's legacy. Some say it's a cruel twist of destiny, while others joke that the Tierneys might have ticked off the wrong river gods. Either way, it's a story that turns the Hoover Dam into more than just a feat of engineering. It's a monument to one of history's strangest and most unsettling coincidences. James Dean's cursed car. James Dean, the brooding Hollywood icon of the 1950s, is remembered for his rebellious spirit and the eerie legend surrounding his car, Little Bastard. This sleek silver Porsche 550 Spider wasn't just a car, but a death magnet. On September 30, 1955, Dean met his untimely end behind the wheel in a head-on collision. But here's where things get unsettling. The curse didn't die with him. After the crash, the car was salvaged and quickly became a harbinger of chaos. The car's parts were sold off, and every piece seemed to carry its sinister energy. One buyer's car crashed when it used a Porsche engine, another died when the drivetrain failed, and a set of tires from the wreck exploded simultaneously, injuring the new owner. Even the shell of the car wasn't safe. It mysteriously vanished while being transported in 1960 and was never seen again. Is it a coincidence? Perhaps. But as the stories piled up, Little Bastard became less of a car and more of a legend, a cautionary tale with a twisted punchline. Never underestimate the grudge of a Porsche with a nickname. Civil War coincidence. From the cursed journey of James Dean's ill-fated car to a war that eerily bookended its devastation on the same man's doorstep, these stories remind us that some coincidences seem almost scripted by fate itself. The American Civil War was one of the bloodiest conflicts in history, but few know about the strange twist of fate that tied the entire war to one man's property. Wilmer McLean, a humble Virginian, lived a quiet life on his farm in Manassas until July 1861, when the first battle of the Civil War, the Battle of Bull Run, erupted quite literally in his backyard. Confederate forces even commandeered his house as their headquarters. McLean, understandably, decided to move far away from the chaos, but fate wasn't done with him yet. 4 years later, as the war reached its climax, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant on April 9, 1865. And where did this historic moment take place? In the parlor of Wilmer McLean's new home in Appomattox Courthouse. McLean famously quipped that the war began in my front yard and ended in my front parlor. Talk about a man who couldn't catch a break. It's almost as if history itself had a personal grudge against him. For someone trying to escape the war, McLean found himself unwillingly hosting its grand finale, proving that sometimes, no matter where you run, history will find you. The man who survived twice. Imagine living through one of history's most catastrophic events, only to find yourself in the middle of another one day later. This was the surreal and harrowing reality of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the man who survived the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. On August 6, 1945, Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip when the first atomic bomb detonated, leveling the city in an instant. Miraculously, despite being just 3 kilometers from ground zero, he survived with severe burns and injuries. Dazed but determined, he returned home to Nagasaki, thinking he had escaped the unimaginable. Little did he know, fate had more in store. Just 3 days later, on August 9th, as he was recounting the horrors of Hiroshima to his boss, the second bomb struck Nagasaki. And once again, Yamaguchi survived. The odds of enduring one atomic blast are astronomical. Surviving two, that's practically a cosmic joke. Yamaguchi went on to live a long life, becoming a symbol of resilience and an advocate for nuclear disarmament. Some say he was the luckiest man alive, others the unluckiest. Strange disappearance of Louis Le Prince. Either way, Yamaguchi's story proves one thing. Sometimes, lightning does strike twice. But while one man defied the odds of survival, another vanished into thin air. Louis Le Prince, often dubbed the father of cinematography, vanished without a trace in one of history's most baffling disappearances. In September 1890, Le Prince boarded a train from Dijon to Paris, carrying with him groundbreaking plans to unveil his motion picture camera to the world. His invention was poised to revolutionize entertainment, potentially placing him in the history books alongside Edison and the Lumiere brothers. But he never arrived in Paris. When the train reached its destination, Le Prince and all of his belongings were gone, as if swallowed by thin air. Nobody, no luggage, no clues. Just an empty seat where a genius once sat. Theories have run wild ever since. Was it a calculated murder by rivals fearing his invention? Or did Le Prince vanish willingly, seeking to escape mounting financial pressures? Adding to the mystery is the timing. Soon after his disappearance, others raced to patent similar cinematic devices, with Edison ultimately gaining the spotlight. Le Prince's story feels like the ultimate plot twist in a film that never got made. Discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 was a momentous event, sparking excitement and intrigue across the globe. But with the uncovering of this ancient treasure trove came an eerie twist, a supposed curse that would haunt the lives of those involved in the excavation. When British archaeologist Howard Carter and his team entered the tomb, they unearthed not just gold and riches, but a chilling inscription that read, "Death shall come on swift wings to those who enter the tomb of the pharaoh." Soon after, a string of mysterious deaths began. Lord Carnarvon, the financier behind the expedition, died just months after the discovery, reportedly from an infected mosquito bite. His death, along with others connected to the tomb, fueled the belief that the curse was real. Some say it was the result of bacteria or fungi trapped in the tomb for centuries, while others wonder if ancient Egyptians truly had a supernatural vendetta. Either way, the curse became part of the legend, an eerie coincidence that mingled with the allure of King Tut's treasures. Billy the Kid's demise. Funny how a tomb full of gold ended up being the gift that kept on giving, in the form of death, not fortune. And speaking of legacies that refuse to die, the story of Billy the Kid seems to have a similarly strange way of lingering long after its supposed end. Billy the Kid, one of the most infamous outlaws of the American Old West, left behind a legacy as legendary as it is mysterious. Born William H. Bonney, Billy became a notorious gunslinger, participating in numerous shootouts and evading capture for years. His life was full of wild stories and quick escapes, but it's the strange coincidence surrounding his death that truly twists the tale. On July 14, 1881, Billy was cornered by Sheriff Pat Garrett in a remote New Mexico ranch house. Billy, ever the escape artist, was shot in the dark, supposedly killed by Garrett. Or was he? Some say Billy the Kid didn't die that night and lived out his life in hiding, perhaps under a different name. But here's where the story gets even weirder. Decades later, a man named Brushy Bill Roberts claimed to be the real Billy, asking for a pardon. His case never gained traction, but it added fuel to the conspiracy fire. Billy's death and supposed resurrection would make anyone believe the kid was as good at dodging death as he was at dodging the law. The tragedy of twins. In early 2002, the town of Rahe, Finland, was stunned by a bizarre and unsettling coincidence. A pair of 70-year-old twins who had lived together their entire lives died on the same day, in the same manner. The two brothers, who had always been inseparable, passed away under eerily similar circumstances, both suffering heart attacks on the very same day. While heart attacks aren't exactly rare, the fact that both men, so closely connected by blood and life, met the same fate within hours of each other was more than just a coincidence. They had lived in the same house, shared a lifetime of memories, and, as if to mark the final chapter of their story, left the world together. The timing and circumstances of their deaths raised questions that still linger. Was it simply an improbable event, or could there be something more mysterious at play? Some might joke that the universe couldn't stand to keep them apart for long, but for those who witnessed it, the eerie parallel felt more like a dark twist in the plot of a strange, unspoken story that only the universe could tell. Bruce Lee's morbid prediction. Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist and film icon, was known for his intense focus and mastery of mind and body. But in a twist that feels almost too eerie to believe, Lee seemingly predicted the tragic death of his son, Brandon Lee, long before it happened. In 1973, Bruce Lee died suddenly at the age of 32, under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a legacy that would continue to inspire millions. Just a few years later, in 1993, Brandon was tragically killed on the set of The Crow when a prop gun misfired, shooting him in a fatal accident. What makes this so chilling is that shortly before his death, Bruce Lee had a conversation with friends where he expressed his concern for Brandon's safety, mentioning that something bad might happen to him while working in film. Some have speculated that Bruce Lee had a supernatural premonition of his son's fate. It's a coincidence that seems far too uncanny to dismiss. Could it have been a parent's intuition, or something more sinister at play? Either way, the haunting connection between the two deaths remains one of the most chilling in history. Presidents John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln. The coincidences surrounding the lives and deaths of Presidents John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln are so uncanny that they feel like something straight out of a suspense novel. Both men were elected to office in a year ending in 0. Lincoln in 1860 and Kennedy in 1960. Both were succeeded by vice presidents who were named Johnson: Andrew Johnson, who took over after Lincoln's assassination, and Lyndon B. Johnson, who assumed the presidency after Kennedy's tragic death. But here's where it gets downright chilling. Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater and Kennedy was shot in a Ford car, both under the shadow of the number 7. The details get even weirder. Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth, was born in 1839, while Kennedy's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, was born in 1939. Both were killed before they could stand trial, and both their deaths sparked a flurry of conspiracy theories that still linger today. Now, some might chalk it up to coincidence, but when the universe hands you this many plot twists, you have to wonder if it's been reading too many thrillers. Whatever the case, the parallels between Kennedy and Lincoln remain one of history's strangest, most suspense-filled puzzles. The Hintk Murders. From the eerie parallels between the deaths of Kennedy and Lincoln to the chilling mystery of the Hintk Murders, some historical events seem to be connected by threads of fate too strange to ignore. The Hintk Murders, one of the most chilling and mysterious crimes in German history, have baffled investigators for nearly a century. In 1922, the Gruber family, 6 members living on a remote farm in the Bavarian countryside, was brutally murdered. But the horror didn't end with their deaths. For days after the killings, the murderer remained hidden in the house, continuing to live off the family's food and belongings, as if mocking the police and everyone who came to investigate. What makes this case so unsettling are the eerie coincidences that followed the crime. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises from the farmhouse for days before the bodies were discovered. Strangely, the family's maid, who had worked for them for just a short time, claimed she saw unusual footprints around the house, but no one took her seriously. Even more disturbing, the murderer, or someone pretending to be the murderer, seemed to have moved freely through the house, maintaining a sinister presence after the killings. Did the killer leave clues on purpose, or was there something even darker at play? Whatever the case, the Hintk Murders remain an unsettling reminder that sometimes evil doesn't just lurk in the shadows, it waits in plain sight. Stephen Hawking's birth and death. Stephen Hawking, the brilliant theoretical physicist who unlocked the mysteries of the universe, lived a life that defied the odds. Diagnosed with ALS at the age of 21, doctors gave him only a few years to live, but he defied expectations and went on to change science forever. But the strangest and most eerie coincidence surrounds his birth and death. He was born on January 8, 1942, the 300th anniversary of the death of the great scientist Galileo Galilei. This alone might seem like a cosmic coincidence, but the truly unsettling part comes when you look at the day Hawking passed away. On March 14, 2018, Hawking died on the same day as Albert Einstein's birthday, one of the world's most iconic scientists. The universe, it seemed, had a peculiar way of drawing connections between its greatest minds. Now, some might say it's just a series of random dates, but when a man who spent his life studying the mysteries of the universe is born and dies on such significant days, you have to wonder, was it fate, a cosmic alignment, or just the universe showing off its sense of humor? Either way, Hawking's final equation remains unsolved, and his story continues to perplex and inspire. The German November. The German November is a strange chapter in history, filled with bizarre coincidences that seem too improbable to be true. In November 1918, at the tail end of World War I, Germany was in chaos. The Kaiser had abdicated, and the country was on the brink of revolution. It was then that two key events unfolded almost simultaneously, setting the stage for the country's future. On November 9, 1918, Germany saw two seismic shifts. The Kaiser fled, and a new German Republic was born. But in a twist of fate, that very same day, Adolf Hitler joined the German Workers' Party, soon to become the infamous Nazi Party. It's almost as if history was drafting its dark sequel. Exactly 15 years later, on November 9, 1938, the infamous Kristallnacht took place, an orchestrated attack on Jewish communities across Germany, signaling the rise of Nazi terror. Was this just a dark twist of fate, or was it as if the universe had a grim sense of humor, offering up historical events with a sense of eerie timing? Either way, November in Germany remains a month of monumental, unsettling change. Mystery of Edgar Allan Poe's story. The tragic events of the German November unfolded with a series of uncanny twists, much like the eerie premonitions and untimely deaths that haunted Edgar Allan Poe's life and work. Edgar Allan Poe, the master of the macabre, is known for crafting tales that leave readers with a chill running down their spine. But one of the most unsettling coincidences in his life may be tied to his mysterious death. Poe was found delirious on the streets of Baltimore in 1849, wearing someone else's clothes, with no memory of how he ended up in such a state. He died just days later, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. What is the eeriest part of all this? His final days eerily mirrored the themes in his own stories: misfortune, madness, and mystery. But here's the kicker. Poe had written a story titled the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, which includes an eerily prophetic passage about men lost at sea who are rescued by a ship, only for one of them to be murdered by the others. In one of the most chilling coincidences of all, nearly 40 years after Poe's death, the real-life case of 3 shipwrecked sailors surfaced who had been stranded on a raft and resorted to cannibalism, killing one of their own. They even shared the same names as the characters in Poe's story. The Curse of Omen. The 1976 horror film The Omen may have terrified audiences with its story of a young boy, Damien, destined to be the Antichrist, but the real-life events surrounding the movie's production are even more chilling. It all began with a series of bizarre, seemingly cursed coincidences that turned the film set into a magnet for misfortune. First, Gregory Peck, who played the father of Damien, had his plane struck by lightning twice during his travels. Then, screenwriter David Seltzer's plane was also hit by lightning while flying over the Atlantic. But it didn't stop there. The film's producer, Mace Neufeld, was involved in a car crash while traveling with his wife, and a friend of the film's director, Richard Donner, was also struck by a car while on vacation in England. Even stranger, the company hired to supply animal handlers for the film suffered an unexpected tragedy. The lions they used for filming allegedly attacked the trainer and killed him, not once, but twice in separate incidents. While skeptics claim it was just a coincidence, the timing and frequency of these strange events surrounding the Omen are impossible to ignore. The bullet that came back. Just as the curse surrounding the Omen seemed to haunt its creators with a trail of misfortune, sometimes it's not the ominous warnings that we need to fear, but the lingering consequences of past actions, like the bullet that came back to claim its target in a twisted twist of fate. In 1914, Henry Ziegland might have considered himself the luckiest man alive, or so he thought. His life took a dramatic turn when his ex-girlfriend's brother, consumed by grief and anger over their failed romance, sought revenge. The brother confronted Ziegland and fired a gun at him in a fit of rage. Thinking he had killed Ziegland, the man turned the weapon on himself, ending his own life. But here's the twist. Ziegland survived. The bullet had merely grazed his face and embedded itself in a nearby tree, leaving him shaken but alive. Years later, Ziegland decided to cut down that same tree, which had stood silently holding the bullet that narrowly missed its mark. Perhaps he thought it was just another mundane task, but when the axe proved insufficient, Ziegland resorted to dynamite. The explosion dislodged the long-lost bullet, sending it hurtling through the air, straight into Ziegland's head, killing him instantly. It's a story so bizarre, it feels scripted by the universe itself, as if the bullet had been lying in wait for its moment. Morale of the story: some grudges and bullets never truly let go. Sinatra's Karaoke Night Curse. Frank Sinatra's voice has charmed millions, but in one bizarre twist of fate, it sparked chaos, literally. In 1962, Sinatra released the sultry hit Strangest in the Night, a song that would become iconic. But in the Philippines, the crooner's music took on an entirely different tone, one of danger. Fast forward to the late 20th century, when Sinatra's tunes were karaoke favorites in the bustling streets of Manila. For reasons no one can quite explain, My Way became a flashpoint. The song, with its dramatic flair and self-assured lyrics, somehow ruffled feathers in karaoke bars to the point where disagreements over its performance turned deadly. The so-called My Way Murders resulted in over half a dozen fatalities as arguments escalated into full-blown brawls. Theories abound. Was it the arrogance of the lyrics, the pressure of doing Sinatra justice, or was it just a cocktail of egos and alcohol? One thing's for sure. In these bars, Sinatra wasn't just a legend. He was a catalyst for chaos. Imagine a world where the most dangerous thing you could do isn't jaywalking or bungee jumping, it's belting out Sinatra at karaoke night. Proof that even in music, the stakes can be higher than anyone expects. The miraculous exploding church incident. Sinatra's tunes sparked unexpected chaos in karaoke bars, proving that sometimes a song can stir more than just memories. There are moments in history when a strange twist of fate seems to step in. The miraculous exploding church incident sounds like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, but it's a real-life event that defies all logic. On a chilly night in March 1950 in Beatrice, Nebraska, the choir of the Westside Baptist Church prepared for their usual evening practice. The session was scheduled for 7:20 p.m. sharp, but for the first time, every single member was late. Now, here's where it gets spine-chilling. At exactly 7:25 p.m., a massive explosion tore through the church, obliterating the building. The cause? A gas leak that ignited with catastrophic force. But here's the miracle. Not a single person was harmed. Every choir member had their unique reason for being delayed. A late dinner, a broken-down car, or even just losing track of time. Think about it. A group that prided itself on punctuality, all coincidentally delayed on the one night it mattered most. The miraculous exploding church incident is a story that leaves you marveling at the fine line between disaster and salvation, and wondering if maybe the universe keeps a schedule of its own. The predictions of September 11th. Now let's move towards our last strangest coincidence. The tragic events of September 11th, 2001 shocked the world. But what's even more unsettling is how often they were eerily foreshadowed in media long before they happened. From television shows to comic books, the imagery and themes surrounding 9/11 seem to have made chilling appearances, as if the universe was dropping hints that no one could interpret in time. Take The Lone Gunman, a spin-off of The X-Files. In March 2001, just 6 months before the attacks, the show aired an episode where a plane was hijacked remotely and aimed at the World Trade Center. The scriptwriters later claimed it was pure imagination, but the eerie accuracy raises eyebrows. Then there's the Simpsons episode from 1997, where a magazine cover shows the Twin Towers alongside the number 9, forming what looks unsettlingly like 9/11. And let's not forget The Matrix, where Neo's passport expiration date is September 11, 2001. Coincidence or something more sinister? While skeptics dismiss these as flukes of creativity, the uncanny parallels have fueled countless conspiracy theories. Perhaps it's proof that truth really is stranger than fiction, or that sometimes our stories have a way of whispering warnings we're just not ready to hear. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.